min.
Ja.
Nei, hun måtte opp. Hvor finner jeg linken? Til streamen min.
Straks tid på, skal jeg stikke med, så tar jeg imot.
Det hadde vært supert. Maten kommer nok litt sent. Jeg gikk på Just Eat, og jeg fikk ja, jeg fant ikke restauranten som leverte her. De Just Eat sendte meg til restauranten som var promotert. Men de sponset ikke innenfor området du er inne. Jeg prøvde 6 restauranter før jeg kom til en som faktisk leverte her.
Hva blir det?
Fant den. Nå er vi forresten live med lyd. Det er ingen tittere enda, men Jonas som har sett ut som det. Hører du meg, Jonas? Er lyden bra nok, eller da prøver jeg å stå litt lenger unna også. Så det har vært supert hvis du hører noe.
Jeg la på den, ja.
Hæ? Vi er live, forresten.
Hæ?
Vi er live. Bare sånn. YouTube. Twitter er mest interessant. Har du fått opp streamen nå? Okay, so we're presenting virtual entities for Dynamics 365 here from Oslo. How is the sound? Ingen lyd?
Jo.
Hvor mye delay? 10 sekunder?
10 sekunder.
Da får du lyd også, det er bra. Det er gøy. Send ut den linken overalt. Det er 2 watchers.
Altså, Hei. Marius.
Marius og Marius?
Ja.
Hei.
Hei, hyggelig.
Vi er på YouTube. På lyd. Så.
Greit, dere får det kjent.
Nei,
Hvor kan du mute lyden frem til vi starter?
jo.
Når man sier det sucks.
Jeg bare ville ha noen til å sjekke lydnivået. Hører du meg, Jonas?
Ja, men da er vi stilt oss.
Det er litt grann forsinkelse her, så
Bra.
Okay, welcome to today's session from the Oslo Microsoft Dynamics 365 community. For those of you joining us on YouTube, we will be presenting virtual entities with a few interruptions, mainly due to pizza. This is a free community project. It's free for anyone to attend, to present, and it's also recruitment free, which is a big, important part of it for us. As I said, community effort, so most of the people who present and participate here are doing it on their own time. If not, thank you to the companies who are providing their employees with the opportunity to be here. Due to it being free, we are always looking for presenters, and we need you guys to present stuff to cause more interest in the field, and it also helps. Like, if you know something that's really cool and you teach it to somebody else, you need to learn something new really cool, or else he's going to be better than you. So it's a great way to always be on your toes and be really nervous about your job security. Okay, so we're a few people in this room and a few people on YouTube right now. We're just going to jump straight into this. There's a few slides going to talk a little bit about the business cases for how you can use virtual entities, and at the later parts of the presentation we'll look at some of the techie stuff. So hopefully we don't have any of the experts from the MVP world watching, but well, you never know. Okay, so virtual entities. What are virtual entities? They're basically just schema definitions. So Dynamics 365 is mostly just a relational database with a lot of logic on top, with a really lovely user interface, which we all pine for. So the schema definition just tells us that this is an entity and it has the following attributes, fields, columns, whatever you like to call them. We who know the application call it fields. It's an entity representation of external data. This means that the virtual entity is just a definition. The data is not stored inside Dynamics. Everything is on the outside. Kind of. Mostly it's on the outside. It's read-only for now, which means you can only look at data from external systems. You can't edit it or create new records. I'm saying for now because I might have looked in places where you shouldn't look and found that there are opportunities in there. They're just hidden from us at the moment. They're unauditable, which isn't true at all because Mark proved me wrong earlier today, so I'm going to talk a bit about that in the techie stuff, but for a normal audit perspective, you can't audit it. And I'll come back to that later because it's an important part, especially with the GDPR thing that everyone in the whole world is scared of. And for the most part, virtual entities are new. It's new territory for Microsoft, it's new territory for the users, it's new territory for everyone. They've been requested since the dawn of time, which means 5 to 10 years. It's going to propel the way we deliver things in Dynamics really fast. So it's no more embedding content in frames just to get external data. You now actually get a relational content that you can use for stuff. So, of course, being new also means that there's likely to be things that aren't working properly yet. But it also means that there's probably lots of things to come. So, we're going to look a bit at the use cases. So, some of the use cases I've thought of is weather data based on location. So you can have accounts and contacts with location inserted. Based on these locations, you can get weather data from external systems, and you can display that straight on the forum. Might not be interesting for everyone, But you could do that, and Dynamics would know what that weather data is because it's a virtual entity. They actually know that this data is in Oslo, or this is in Denver, or wherever you may be. That's really cool because that means you can use it for other things as well. So you can generate opportunities and whatever you want based on the external data. Real-time stock quotes, which I think probably all companies at some point have tried to deliver. Most efforts I've seen is really just framing some stock site or another and trying to build some interface based on JavaScript and jQuery. It lets you avoid duplication of insensitive data. So having data that you're duplicating into Dynamics just to be able to present it in a relational way is something that most people do. Like people have large SSIS jobs using Kingsway Soft, Scribe, whatever you may prefer. But they load a lot of data into Dynamics just to be able to use them for queries, for charts, and so on. And that's not really good for modern deployments, especially online deployments with a limited database size. So now that you can get the external data and present it in Dynamics as in a relational way, you can keep copies of the customer data that is not relevant. You have virtual entities of archived documents, of archived data available through a proper archiving system. I'm not saying SharePoint, but SharePoint. Of course, you can expand the customer insight based on this because you can get data from other ERP solutions and you can present them again in a relational way, which means that you can transform, build, and generate stuff based on data from all kinds of systems and not through custom coding. I heard of one, if anyone's heard of K2, like the process management tool, BPM tool, I've heard of one project where they spent 1.5 years implementing K2 with Dynamics 2011. This was in 2014. So now you can actually just get the data straight into Dynamics. You can use the workflows or Microsoft Flow to do a lot of that process support right there in the system. I don't think all the banks will just jump straight on this, but it's a huge step forward and it really puts pressure on guys like K2, Nintex. What's your favorite? It's yeah.
Which one?
For Dynamics. Oh, can't remember the name. Anyway, yeah, and of course, as I said to begin with, related data instead of framed resources. So instead of having a website framed inside Dynamics, you can now have related data. So only get customers where, yeah, where some kind of thing like where the weather is good, because that's all we think about in Norway, it's the weather. Whether or not you like it. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, what isn't supported? A lot more fun. So, alternate keys are not supported, and this is a big thing because this means that you have all the virtual entities needs to have GUIDs as keys. So if your external data doesn't have GUIDs, if they're using unique names or integers or what you may have, like legacy systems often use integers running from 1 to forever, you have to implement a new key. That's not fun if your database is large, and it might be near impossible if you're using some system that doesn't let you customize things. For more techie people, you know that if you can integrate with an external system, then you can probably just make your own proxy layer in front. But it's still going to be a hassle making a lookup table just to implement GUIDs. Calculator and roll fields are not supported yet. So you can't roll up queries and get sums on your virtual entities. Auditing, which I will come back to, really important, and really not happy about Mark. Okay, so that's pizza. Anyone? We have one volunteer. Probably need two. Ja, det står positivt där. Ja, tack. Okay, so while they're getting pizza, just going to talk really slowly so they can get all of the not supported hard stuff. So yes, I said we'll look into auditing later. And the following field types. Multi-select option sets, not supported, which is a kick in the leg. Images, not supported, which also was quite depressing for me to find out because that solved the business case for me entirely, and then everything crashed and made me a very dissatisfied and unhappy man. Currency, not supported, and that's basically because currency is two tables in the background in the database system, so it's the base currency as well as the actual currency. So they're not doing the lookup for virtual entities to check what is the base currency and doing the calculations and so on. And the customer lookup is not supported. And that's because of the because of polymorphing. So the customer is like basically two fields, and it prefers account, but if you only have contact, then it will show the contact. This is not supported for virtual entities because it doesn't query that many times to an external system. It would make everything very slow. As you will see later, because I managed to create my virtual entities datasets in the US, not very optimal. You can use lookups. So you can do lookups to other entities, of course, and we're going to come back to how that's wasted a whole day of mine.
Well, I'll link it.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are the unsupported. Also, found out earlier today, you cannot use link types for text fields. So you cannot use URL and email. It does not support them. Gives you an error message which gives you the entire stack trace. So if you're interested in seeing how Dynamics works in the background, then you can take a look at that. Or if you have better things to do, then don't. Question?
You used stock quotes as an example of user guess. You're saying that currency is not supported.
Yeah. So you will, if you're, the question was that I mentioned stock quotes earlier, and that currency is not supported. That is true. So you would have to use decimal to be able to present the data with some accuracy, and you wouldn't get the currency conversion. So yes, you could show some stock system, but you would have to base it on a different numbering system than the currency. And I know that, of course, will be challenging, but keep in mind this is first release of virtual entities, and as demand grows, they will probably give us more stuff as well. Let's just be really happy that we got virtual entities right now. Okay, so I'm going to show you a real life example. I'm just going to spend some time trying to get screen sync to work, side sync with my phone. Sorry for the delay here. So this isn't working immediately, so I'll just do the presentation just on the computer instead. So what I was going to show you is just a Power App that I've built, which lets you do some simple administration. But I can show it on the computer as well, of course. So, everyone is probably familiar with this interface. Hopefully, or this presentation might just fly a bit over your head. So this is really scary because now you can see what I've searched for before. Maybe I'll just do some of this from another browser first, especially since it's on YouTube and it will stay there forever. Here is my amazing SharePoint site. And as you can see here, I have something I've called my customer profiles, which will be much funnier if you're Norwegian than if you're English. Feel free to run these through Google Translate whenever you feel like it. Okay. So I've created something I call customer profiles. So a customer profile is something you attach to a contact or account. It includes a campaign and it includes some focus products. And as you see, I can never help myself from using humor too much. That's great. So here I can create new and I can do quick edit and flow and so on. You all know how SharePoint works, and if you don't, you should. Being a modern man with big ideas, I've created my own, very own Power App. And this 5-minute presentation so this is why I wanted to use my phone. We'll come back to it straight away. Or maybe just not display it this time around. So you've all seen Power Apps, probably. What I've done with the Power App is that I've created a view and an edit and a create screen. So I can see the things that's in my list, I can edit them, and I can create new ones. And I can do that from my mobile phone. So this means that some marketing guy can sit with his shiny phone of whatever brand and do all of these things on his own. Just linking campaigns URL and campaign URLs and so on. So, what use is that? You ask me. Well, wouldn't you like to have customer profiles inside your Dynamics environment? Well, yes, you would. So here I'm opening my own contact. So this is me, and as you can see, my customer profile is and job title couch potato. I take myself very seriously. And down here, you can see that my customer profile with my target products and the campaign URL is showing. So this means that I can now get this URL dynamically from the SharePoint list. Whenever I update it there, it will be updated here as well. So using that URL, I can also query it. So I can get that URL, and I could, if I wanted to, add a framed resource here in the middle and just start loading these pages and make the form look really horrible. Or you could find some other use for this to load other stuff or push data or whatever, integrate with other systems. So you're getting dynamic URLs, dynamic data based on SharePoint list or whatever you want. But I took SharePoint because it directly integrates with Power Apps. You can build management stuff really quickly that lets everyone in your company just do things that integrates with Dynamics. And this, of course, doesn't require Dynamics licenses. So this is true collaboration with someone who works in totally different departments. I'm not saying it's as brilliant as groups, but I mean, I'm really proud of myself for spending all of these minutes creating this wonderful tool. So, to get this on the form, we really don't have to do anything special. I've added a relationship to the customer, which is the customer profile. And here I have added a quick view to the customer profile. I will also display a little later what happens when you delete this data in the external system. So don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. It's fine. Fine. Very fine. Okay, so that was the real life example. So what I've done, I've created a customer profile virtual entity. Customer profiles are maintained in SharePoint lists. I have a Power Apps app, which thankfully due to not prepping enough, isn't working right now, or I couldn't get my phone to sync up. And I have a proxy layer in Azure, which actually takes the content from that SharePoint list and shows it in Dynamics. And why am I not showing it directly? It's because SharePoint is a kind of like, well, they're on OData v3, so I'll let you decide whether that's modern and nice or not. So they're on OData v3, which isn't supported for virtual entities, so I have to use a proxy layer. What I'm basically doing is just piping everything through my own API, which is in Azure. And for salespeople, it just means extra hours, so don't worry about it. Authentication is handled server-side, which means it's a non-interruptive experience. So the server handles everything that has to do with authentication, and you just get the response, and it shows it in this form, which has a small caveat that you need to do custom code to actually manage permissions, but we'll come back to that later. It's all possible. That's the thing you should take from this if you're a marketing or a salesperson. And the customer profiles which you saw, they contain products and targeted campaigns. So I can add products, remove them, and you can see that. So as a salesperson, you can build a business process flow that targets these products, and if they're in your product catalog, then you can integrate this with opportunities and just do multi-select using either third-party solutions or your own design. Just really easily add target products and so on. And this, I know for a fact, is really this is stuff that I've made several times before for different customers in different ways, and this just solves everything using Dynamics and SharePoint. But for some of the customers, they have legacy bank systems, so I would have to use a proxy layer on-premise through Azure Service Bus, then into Dynamics. And that works totally fine. You just don't worry about it. Unless you're a techie guy, then we'll talk about it in a few minutes. So, a few caveats. Lookups to virtual entities are not deleted when external data is missing. So if you have an external data source, which was, for me, Bondetamp, And if this record is deleted from the source system, then the field will no longer say bonnetomp, and it will no longer be empty. It will have a parentheses, name and parentheses. And if you have a quick view on that form, which loads data from that entity, you will get an ugly error message, including the full stack trace, the server name to the database that your Dynamics instance runs on. So you actually get the full domain name to the backend database server in Azure, which runs your Dynamics 365 instance, for whoever might find that interesting. And it doesn't really make sense, except if you know what you did before this error happened. In addition to all of this, you can't load the form any longer. So if the data is missing from the source system and you have a quick view, then the form for your entity will never load. So if you're using quick views on your account or contact form, you will never get it to load if the data is deleted. Of course, you can fix this by running just a XML HTTP request or whatever code you like to run, or you could create a new form without the quick view and then delete the data. So this is some of the quirks from being new that haven't really been ironed out properly. There is a reason why it's not deleted, and it's just that what happens if the source system is offline? So if your source system is offline, should all the references be deleted from Dynamics automatically? I say no. It would be horrible to go in and replace all of that data later on. So what you really need is some kind of error checking to prevent this from happening. And I tried, like I really tried. So I put the quick view in its own control, in its own section that was collapsed and hidden on the form. And we're going to check if the value was name instead of the actual source data, and then expand the sections and so on based on that value. That didn't work at all. So what it does is that it resolves metadata before it loads the entity. So as long as you have a quick view on the form, it will try to resolve the data in the source system and you will get this error. So quick view is the thing that will give most value from source data in existing forms and existing processes, but it also has a big weakness with being offline or data being deleted in the external system. Of course, with clever developers, you could create backup solutions, so you could automatically create a register of the GUIDs, and if the data isn't found, then you can load some dummy data. You could do things in the background. You could register a plugin which just fixes this, but you need developers. Yes, you need developers to fix this. And end-to-one mappings only supports GUID references, not alternate keys. So you can have a lookup from a virtual entity to any system entity or custom entity, any entity in the system. So you could, I think you even can do from virtual entity to another virtual entity, which might be a good idea or might end you up in a customization hack. So you can have those mappings. I did that, like for example, I did source customer. If I generated lead in some external system or projects or so on, if you're using something else than project service automation. But you need to do GUIDs. You cannot use alternate keys. So you cannot do a lookup to a customer based on the account number. You need to have the original GUID, which is, yeah, it's not very fortunate. It means you're copying GUIDs across systems, and it's, well, personally, I think it's ugly, but you might like it. Who am I to judge? I'm just the expert here. The humor doesn't really work across YouTube. Please don't take all of the things I say seriously. So, some gotchas. Lookup values B2B nullable GUIDs. So not only GUIDs, they need to be nullable. So, and this wasted a whole day for me. Like, why isn't this working? And, it says so in the documentation. So, like, read the documentation. That's my advice. Only unfortunate thing is that the documentation isn't really easy to find. There are more blog posts on virtual entities than there is actual documentation, and some parts of the documentation isn't really updated, which, thanks to the horrible guys on Twitter, I found out today that some of the things I'm going to talk about isn't viable any longer. And special text types is not supported. For example, URL and email. If you try to use hyperlinks, well, you might get it to work if you use something else than C#. So that's on me. So, or create your custom OData solution. So I use the ASP.NET OData extensions, and when you have models with URLs, it returns the sections. And the sections aren't really populated when you create a URI from an absolute URI. And yeah, it's all a big mess. I even managed to make the data look exactly like it does in Dynamics, and it still failed on me. So URLs and emails and so on, they have to be text fields. Unless you can get it to work, then please let me know. So, don't have the slide for the last part of the what should have been the slide series. This is all on me. But that's the auditing part. So, especially now with GDPR compliance, which will hit everything like a train next year, you have to audit who accesses what data as long as you're working with customers. And if you have a CRM system like Dynamics 365, then you're probably working with customers. So one requirement is that you need to be able to identify who looked at which data at what point. And like most people know, the audit log for Dynamics is, first of all, lacking. Second of all, cannot audit retrieve operations. Also, well, even if they might have changed this, so hopefully I'm not saying stuff that isn't true anymore, but you can register plugins that work on retrieve and retrieve multiply. And that will let you log things manually, either to disk or some other solution. And I have one that I really recommend, which I will do at another meetup. But the thing is, if you use fetch XML from reporting services. So, okay, for Dynamics Online, it's not an issue where the virtual entities is the only place. The only place the virtual entities are is in Dynamics Online. But on-premise, if you do fetch XML from reporting services, it doesn't trigger retrieve or retrieve multiply in Dynamics. So if someone builds a fetch XML and runs it through reporting services, they can collect data without you being able to audit it. And that's important. That's really important to know. And that's where we get back to virtual entities. You cannot log, retrieve, create, update anything because you can't create or update them. And as the documentation says, you cannot trigger plugins on them. It turns out that some guy in Australia thought he'd try that, and yes, it just worked. So documentation came back and just kicked me. So you can actually do the same kind of auditing with virtual entities that you can with normal ones. So that's why my slide is kind of missing. But the thing that makes it harder with virtual entities is that the user context is not passed to the source system. So when you collect data from the SharePoint list or from your on-premises database server or whatever, wherever you may have that data, the user context is not passed. It's always the Dynamics backend that does the communication. We'll take a look at that afterwards, how it looks in Dynamics and what this means. But that means that if you're doing logging on your source systems, you don't know which user in Dynamics who actually got the data. And that means that you have to log it on the Dynamics side. So thankfully, you can access the retrieve and retrieve multiple operations through plugins. Unfortunately, you have to do that to be able to audit things. So that means if you don't want to create your own audit system in Dynamics, you need to, you can only load data that isn't sensitive through virtual entities and be GDPR compliant. And that's a big no-no for a lot of people, but I will do a session later on how you can do audit logging from Dynamics using Azure Event Hubs. It's fast like nothing else, and it lets you consume the data and do real-time statistics on it. And it will also completely drain your available Azure resources in a short amount of time, based on real-life experiences. So that was the part of like the business part with some small technical insights. We're going to look at how to register these, how virtual entities are configured, and we're going to talk a bit about the technologies that are supported. It's understandable if people drop out at this point. I'll give you all an artistic break of like 3 to 4 minutes to go out of the room and maybe not come back. And for those of you on YouTube, I'm sorry for the next part because my microphone is in the computer, and when I type on the computer, it gets really loud. So I think this is goodbye. I'm very happy that you followed us so far. This has been our first live stream, and please don't hate me for being inconsistent and unprepared.